Hello, everyone. So today we have Brianna Lore here. We are going to be talking about my planner, the Final Farewell Planner, and this was created to help people who have lost a loved one. Really, it's for anybody, but specifically, really for people that have lost a loved one, and they are now understanding that it's really important to start writing stuff down, planning for your family to help the family that's left behind. So we're getting a different perspective. A lot of people know my story, but I'll give a quick back history. I lost my mom unexpectedly. With losing her, I was thrown in the process of planning a funeral, and there were so many hurdles that I like to say it was like a system of shock. And so with all these hurdles, I started realizing people were going through stuff like this, but they weren't talking about it a lot. And so I thought to myself, I don't want anybody else to go through this if I can help it. So I put this planner together, and Brianna has had a chance to go through the planner. And so we're just going to get her insight and see how this spoke to her and see what she has to say. So welcome, Miss Brianna. How are you today?
I'm good. Hey.
Thank you for taking time out today to do this interview with me. I am very grateful. So,
no problem. Sorry, I'm moving my camera around.
No worries. So one of the first things I wanted to ask you was, or in talking to you, you and I spoke about how you lost a parent. And I'm 40 years old, and I lost my mom at 40, and she and I were fairly close, pretty close, and we talk all the time. And so we were always talking about what she would want done if she were to pass away. And so even with my mom and I talking as much as we did, there was a lot of information that was not covered because I didn't know, and it's crazy. I always tell people, like, not knowing what you need to know is pretty hurtful until you find yourself in that situation. And then that's where the shock comes in, because you're getting hit wave after wave after wave with different scenarios. So if you don't mind, share with us which parent you lost and how you lost her.
So I lost my mother when I was 6 years old. My mom actually got in a drunk driving car accident. And so she left behind me and my two younger sisters. I was 6 at the time, so they would have been like 5 or 4 and 1. So they were very, very young. We were all very young. And I think no matter what stage you're in, when you have this process, like 40 years old or 6 years old, it is always going to be like a rough process. It's like a hard thing that you've got to get through, kind of. It did throw us into a pretty rough situation, having a dad that was also young. My dad was 26 years old, and then now raising 3 girls, which is a complete different dynamic. And so him kind of being thrown into the gist of kind of learning, number one, the differences between girls and boys, and understanding and trying to, learn each other and get through that. And then him also being thrown into making hard decisions that he didn't intend on making that soon in life. I mean, it was just like a rough, shock. Like, it's like something unexpected that came out of nowhere. And, just throws you into a whole new world of things, like a whole new perspective, things that you have to learn to do that you didn't maybe do before. Just all of those things. It's brand new. Stuff just becomes new. You have to learn to get through it.
So one of the things that we actually discussed was that, talking about you losing your mom, there's like that sense of like, oh man, I'm so sorry that you lost your parent at such a young age. But then when you actually go through the process of losing someone you love, especially a parent, there's a deeper understanding that happens. So like I said, I'm 40 and I lost my mom, and it really actually traumatized me to a certain degree. So I can only imagine being 6 and losing your parent. And then like the whole element of like, there are certain things that you're never going to know. There are certain conversations that you're never going to have. Like there's just a certain awareness that that comes about when you actually go through this whole thing yourself and you really understand like the hurt, the crying, and all the stuff that comes with that losing a parent. But I just think it's got to be even worse when you're small and you've lost a parent and there's just certain conversations that you're not going to be able to have.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning process for sure. Like, I mean, when you lose the parent that young, you go through a lot of things in life kind of by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
And especially when it's a mother, when you lose a motherly figure and you've got a dad. I mean, young women come into, puberty and adulthood and all of those things that would be easily spoken about with a parent that is a mother
Mm-hmm.
rather than just a father. And so you are thrown into different dynamics, and then you just going through school, things that my mom would have went through that I didn't get to learn from her. And it definitely is a different process. But I think no matter what stage you lose somebody, even at 40, there's still so much that you're going to miss, like, living without that person. So,
yeah, so true. So what would you say is your biggest fear now that you have one parent and you guys are close? What is your biggest fear with losing your dad?
So one of my biggest fears would be, just not knowing, being in that state of shock and not knowing, because my dad, like you said, he's my surviving parent, and where we are really close. And so even just thinking of your planner, coming down to those hard conversations, I haven't really, my dad is one of those dads that doesn't really want to have that conversation about death, and he thinks that he'll live forever, and I would love that to be the case, but unfortunately we understand that death can come very soon. And it's always unexpected. It's no matter if someone, maybe has a diagnosis or different things like that, it's still an unexpected process. And so, I just worry that I haven't had those hard conversations with him, and I don't really know what his wishes would be. And that would make, the process of losing him so much harder.
Mm-hmm.
If that be the case, it would just be such a hassle. And when I think about that at this moment, it's like, it almost gives me anxiety, like you get worried that if this was to happen, I mean, I have no information. I don't know, about life insurance for my dad. I don't know about his, end of the days, what his wishes are, final wishes. And it just, it'll throw you into a state of panic if you actually think about it. And so it's needed for us to have that hard conversation.
So honestly, I've found that a lot of people, there's a couple of reasons. A lot of people don't like talking about these subjects, which for me, when I started building this business, I had to really think to myself, is this something that I want to go into? Because I was like, I know there are tons of people that have not really come in touch with those kind of conversations. Like it's kind of taboo for them. They're like, oh, it's bringing it on. I don't want to do that. But like I said, with planning my mom's funeral, and my mom planned to the best of her ability. But that lack of awareness of what's actually needed actually will send your family into a state of chaos, especially if you're trying to figure stuff out at the last minute. And like what you're saying, you don't know what they want. And then there's a certain guilt that comes on if you're like, well, I hope this is something that they would want. When you can clarify all this with a conversation. Yes, it's a hard conversation. I'm not going to say it's just like in and out, easy conversation. Like it's really going to take some time to think about what you would want done. However, when you are proactive like this helps your family to understand what you would want. And like once a person is gone, you're able to like really flash back to the conversations that you had, which will, and for me anyway, this is the way it worked for me. It gave me, I think that was the one thing that gave me the most peace, is knowing that my mom was really adamant about saying, okay, when I pass away, this is what kind of food I want served. When I pass away, this is what kind of music I want. And so I just say, I come across a lot of people that they know they need to have it done, but they keep telling themselves, I'll do it one day. And you'll hear me say all the time, the problem with one day is that it's not on the calendar. And so I actually help I help people with this because this is one of the stumbling blocks. The first stumbling block I have found is that people don't like to write it down. One, because they don't know what to write, and two, then they know it's going to bring on a conversation that is already hard for them to have. It's almost like still being in a sense of trauma from a previous situation, and it brings back all these memories. And so I have a few things that I do. So the first one is a discovery call. If you're a person you know that you don't know what to say, or you're not sure exactly where you are, or you're not sure how to get clarity on how to move from step A to step B, I do a 45-minute phone call. We go over where you are, and there's a series of questions that I ask to help you figure out where you currently are and versus where you actually want to be. And then that gives some guidance about like what you need to work on so that you can accomplish a goal of starting to write this stuff down. After that, if you are still in a state of like, okay, I want to write it down, I don't know how to get through these questions. Again, these are not like easy questions. They are like thought provoking. And so I set up a different type of call, and that's just basically where you can give you a chance to go through the book, find the questions that are really hard for you, and in an hour's time, we answer as many questions as you possibly can. So there's help for people who want to do it, but they don't know what to do. And there's helpful people, maybe they've gotten the book and they have questions and they don't know how to start answering these, or they don't know how to address it with their parents, which I found to be extremely important and valuable. Again, being proactive to get this stuff done before a life event happens. And then once a life event does happen, expected or unexpectedly, there's still a sense of peace because now the people that they have left behind have been prepared properly to the best of their knowledge.
Absolutely.
So kind of a sidebar there. But how do you think this planner could have helped your family with your mom passing?
One of the things that we've kind of talked about, in and out of having conversations about your planner, because, I'm super excited about it anyway, but it's just, it could have been the calm in the storm. You think of just somebody passing, like we said, both expected or unexpected, it throws you into a state of like just adrenaline running, and making the hard decisions under that kind of pressure is not always right. You can look back on stuff and be like, oh, I wish I would have done it that way. Mm-hmm. And these are like the pinnacle moments, kind of like when you get married, it's like, there's only going to be one first time.
Yeah.
There's only one time that this happens, like there's not a second chance that we get to actually do this. Like the funeral is one time, all of this is one time. And so you don't want to look back and have a bunch of regrets on decisions maybe that you made that you could have had planned or did something differently. We all know that planning makes things better. We're proactive. We can kind of work out the kinks. And so I think, it would have definitely been a game changer for my dad. Even at 26, having to make decisions that he's never even at 26 years old. Like I look back to my 26-year-old years and I'm like, this wasn't even on my mind. This wasn't something that I would even be considering. And so the thought of it is that, the world makes us believe, oh, you're going to live forever. And you have these, these ambitions and ideas that like, it's going to last forever. However, in times of panic and moments of, uncertainty, there are things that just can unexpectedly happen and throw you into that whirlwind of, panic and uncertainty. And so this would have been a true game changer for my dad. It could have given him the opportunity to more focus on my sisters healing and helping them. It could have given him more time to focus on his own grieving, his own, time to actually spend on making decisions on like, hey, how do I continue next with raising these children by myself? What's the next step? What's going to be next? And not having to worry so much about the decisions in the moment, because when we make decisions in the moment, we all know sometimes, most of the time, we regret those decisions that are made in the moment. Yeah. I'm an impulse shopper. I buy stuff and I regret buying it all the time. So, I just think in a moment of uncertainty with yourself and panic, you can make decisions that you probably wouldn't have made if you were able to have a more level and clear head. And that is what I believe, this planner does. It helps you get that level head. It helps you have, number one, the level head because of the person that is now gone. was able to give you their dying wishes, the things that they want, the things that they want to see happen, which can give you a level of peace, like you said, because you're not having to be uncertain on whether or not this person would have wanted this or wanted that. They've given you clear instruction, and it would make the process so much easier.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what would you say, going through the planner, what would you say, or even talking about it, has stood out to you the most about this planner? Like, what's one thing that you would say people need to know about this planner because of this one section?
I think, the most important part is that it asks the hard questions, the questions that you wouldn't even think about in a time of, uncertainty or death. Like, even for myself, when I think about the planner, my thoughts were, I don't know who my beneficiary would be. That's a question that's in there. And it's like, I've not thought about that for myself. And me being a single woman, no children, I don't have, a lot of people that are just in my direct family. Like, my dad has his wife, and like my sister has her husband. There's people that they have that they could rely on. Most times we think our parents are going to pass away before we do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our mindset is. And so it's like unrealistic to think, okay, well, I can have my dad. I need to make sure that I have a backup plan, and that I have a plan for who my beneficiary would be, who the person would be that would take care of my, dying wishes. Who would that person be? Because again, I'm in a position where I'm not married. I don't have children. So, I don't, I need to think about those things for even just myself. And, obviously what I like most is that it gets you thinking, gets your wheels turning, that you're going to be, prepared, that you're going to have these questions to be able to answer them. And even if life dynamic does change, then you have the ability to, rewrite it, fix it, change it. But the fact that it's there, that it has your mind focused on, not focused on it, but thinking of it, that you're planning for it, that you understand that this is eventually, the plan. And we need to make sure that we leave our loved ones something so that they're not in a state of panic. The last thing I would want is for my family to already be going through a rough time, and for my, my ending to be that much worse because they can't grieve properly. They can't, I would just hate that for them.
Yeah. So one of the things that I actually talk about, and so I also have corresponding videos with this planner to kind of go a little bit deeper and give real life scenarios that I had to go through, which inspired this planner in the first place. But one of the first hurdles that I came across was the beneficiary that my mom had chosen. And I remember talking to her at least 3 different times at 3 different occasions, and just talking about what she would want done and how she want things done, and saying to her specifically, like, I know you've chosen this beneficiary, like, you have your own reasons. However, you may want to look at how their character is in real time, real life. Like, they don't handle instructions very well. They're not very good with their own finances, and they fight you about everything. And my mom was just really adamant about letting them be the beneficiary. And I'm going to tell you, choosing the wrong beneficiary can frustrate your family that much more. And I know that it was like a learning curve, because this is the first time for both of us, me and the beneficiary, to go through something like that. However, something that I talk about in this planner and in the videos is like choosing the right type of beneficiary because they're the right fit for that task. You don't want to choose somebody as a beneficiary because, oh, well, I gave Johnny and Sue these tasks. I don't want, Susan to also feel left out. So I'm going to give her this task of being beneficiary, which, when you break it all down, and this is how I had to, again, this is a conversation I wish somebody had with me, or I could have related to my mom to help her better understand. When it comes in time of like paying off your debts, when it comes time to communicating with your family, some people have it set up where they have it allocated, who's going to get what, things like that. But in this situation, beneficiary basically made all the major decisions. Mm-hmm. And because they didn't ask the right questions on certain things, $5,000 of the insurance money that needed to go to the funeral home got spent. And I was left like figuring out, what in the world am I going to do to pay off this debt? And it was hard because the beneficiary kind of was like, it's just another bill. And that's just inexperience talking. I know that's what that was. However, it didn't make the situation any better. And so that left me trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe I can sell this. Maybe I can talk to so and so person. And luckily, because my mom passed away due to COVID, they had a grant that gave back $9,000 of your money that you paid toward funeral expenses, which allowed me to pay off that debt. But if you've got a person that doesn't honor your wishes now, you don't want somebody that does not know. You don't want somebody handling your affairs, basically, because they're going to do what they see fit, not what you would want. So that's why I talk about the beneficiary, because I've seen firsthand picking the wrong person for a task like that can add more stress to your family than is necessary.
Right.
So that was a great point.
It can also, cause breaks in the family. I just think
Yes.
about, my grandmother, my great grandmother, 2 years ago. And I just think about the relationship that my dad now has with his aunts and uncles because of the way that her ending wishes were handled. And because someone was the beneficiary and they took matters into their own hands as opposed to following after what she really wanted,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people ended up hurt. And it can cause breaks in family. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no more bonds there. They don't even talk anymore.
Yeah.
And God forbid that be something that my death causes, or something that even my dad, like I would hate for to lose my dad, and then me and my sisters or my brothers can't get it right, and we
Yeah.
end up no longer speaking because of something that was already a traumatic experience, and it can
Right.
turn into a whirlwind of trouble later on, and that's
Yeah.
just not what death should be.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And unfortunately, you're correct. Unfortunately, especially if it's a large sum of money or a large inheritance that people are due to get, it will put a complete break. Like I feel, and this is my personal opinion, that money will bring out who you truly are. So if you are a giver, you're going to give more. If you're a person that's always taking from other people, or you're always thinking about yourself, you get that money in your hands, you're going to only think about how this is going to enhance you and not how you can help out the family as a whole. Um, and that's another conversation, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think it's really important to have a family conversation. Again, it's one of those things that I realized as you kind of walk through and you're setting things up, and you come to an understanding that there's a conversation that you'll have with the person one-on-one that's starting to write this stuff down. And then sometimes there's a conversation that needs, you set up a conversation with the family so that everybody gets this understanding, so everybody can understand the importance of writing it down and why this person who is setting up basically kind of like a will, if you will, why they're setting it up the way they are, why they have people doing certain tasks. If you don't have that conversation, it can set up a break in the relationship. So conversation is like so key. Communication is key. And this planner is really geared to help people have these conversations. And again, if you're not somebody that knows how to even start these conversations with family, then that's when I recommend doing a discovery call, because I can help you figure out where you are. And from there, we can figure out how to start having these conversations with your family. So the last question I'm going to ask you is, how could this planner apply to your life where you are right now?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, it can help me to ask myself the hard questions that I'm, maybe avoiding or maybe haven't even thought of. Because obviously everybody avoids the conversation of death. Nobody wants to think they're going to die. And so the reality of that is that we're just not focused on that kind of thing. And it's not beneficial to the people that you're leaving behind if you don't have a plan for your life, if you don't have a plan for after you pass, even as far as like life insurance, it is something that's important. And so this planner would help me to answer the hard questions for my family and make sure that my family feels secure in the decisions that they're making. And then they also know what my plan was for my things, like where it's going to go, who's it going to go to, that kind of thing. So, because the last thing I would want is, nobody to be in charge of it and then the state take
Yeah.
over and be able to do whatever with my money or with my belongings, and my parents or the people I love don't even get a say so. And so it's really important that we have that plan. And it's important that even at a young age, because death is unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't, it's not planned. We don't know. Even at a younger age, you take into consideration that I'm not going to live forever. Anything can happen tomorrow. And so, living my life with the understanding that, hey, tomorrow's not promised and I've got a plan, and you guys need to know what my plan is. That way, even if you don't want to listen to me, because I know my dad won't accept it. I think about that, like having that conversation with him, he won't accept it. But if anything does happen to me, at least I have prepared them,
Yeah.
planned, and then they get that personal aspect of being able to have something that I wrote down.
Right.
I think that
Yeah.
something that's so thoughtful. And I think back to my mom. I mean, my mom used to write in books all the time when I was a kid, and something ended up happening to those documents when she passed. And nobody thought about the long term of whether or not her kids would want to see that stuff and just know, her handwriting and all of that. And so I just look back to that and I tell myself, if I can do that for the people that I love, knowing how it has affected me now as an adult, if I can do that for the people that I love, leave something behind for them so that they can remember me by, so that I can make it easier, I want to do that for them.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you've covered everything. You've done a great job explaining it, telling your story, and I'm so grateful for your time and energy. Again, I want to put it out there. If you have not heard of this planner, it's called Final Farewell Planner. You can find it at notyourtypicalplanner.com. Sign up through email. We'll start sending you emails, and we can go into a deeper dive of where you're at. I have a digital download version for people that prefer to do it on the computer. And then I have one where you can actually receive it through mail. Now, one of the things that I went through with my mom, she wrote everything down because I'm such a big stickler on writing stuff down. Like I literally have a website called All About Journals. And it's just, since I was 16, I've seen the value of writing your thoughts down, helping you to sort through the issues that you may be having by rereading what you're actually writing. And so my mom as she started talking to me, I told her, I was like, you should just start writing this stuff down so that when it happens, I can follow your what you want to the letter. Well, when my mom passed away, again, it was unexpected and I could not find what she wrote down. And I remember her telling me, I finally completed everything. I have the eulogy done. And like, she was so excited to have it completed. And it was disheartening for me because I couldn't find it. And so I designed the cover in a way that it's going to stand out. Like it's bright. You're not going to miss it. And I've done a test of like putting it on a regular bookshelf so that if it's standing next to a book, it's so bright. That's the one thing that your eye is going to go to. So go check it out. Notyourtypicalplanner.com. If you need more clarity, you can book a discovery call. And I'm sorry right now, I don't have the actual product in hand because I'm actually waiting for the sample to come in, but it should be here very soon. However, like I said, if you're in a position where you want to start working on that now, you do have the capability of downloading it for yourself. So Brianna, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you sharing your story with us, and we look forward to having many conversations, even with like helping your dad figure this stuff out and come to grips with starting to write this stuff down.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, world. We will talk to you next time.